So the market's up 45 points, but we are focusing on the graphite electrode space. And I mean, the two names which come up all the time are HEG and graphite. HEG could be, I mean, is widely considered the purest play on electrodes in the world. High-flying names, we had brokers like Merrill Lynch initiating coverage on HEG not very far back, just a couple of months back. But it's come a long way. I mean, the high was almost 5,000 rupees. It is down 40% from the highs. In the last 1 month, it's down 24%. I mean, this year, essentially, which is the month we're talking about. Ravi Jhunjhunwala is Chairman and Managing Director of HEG. He's joining us right now on the phone line to take a couple of questions. Mr. Jhunjhunwala, thanks very much for joining us. I mean, just set the context for us in terms of what has changed, because we're hearing all these things that, you know, the input prices have gone up, which is needle coke. The end sort of product prices are going down. Demand is falling, which is steel. I mean, you know, and of course, has something changed in China's policies, which is, you know, are they letting blast furnace steel mills open up, which is reducing the demand for electric arc furnaces? Just take us through all of these things. What's happening?
You see, nothing has changed as far as China is concerned. No policy has changed. And as I've mentioned many a times on your channel itself, it really makes very, very little difference to the rest of the 6-7 players who are in the world in the graphite business, except that the two Indian companies produce about 20-25% of their products, which is called the non-ultra high power, the low-end electrodes, because China only produces non-UHP electrodes and China only consumes non-UHP electrodes. We don't sell anything to China, so there is no impact on our exports to China. India doesn't import anything in the UHP sector from China, so that's again not a concern to us. Their environment policy remains as strict as it used to be a year ago. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing has changed as far as China is concerned. The only thing which has changed is that China has in the last 18 months or so, doubled their electric arc furnace production from about 50 million tons to about 100 million tons. Mm-hmm. Their electrode demand has subsequently, let's say, doubled from 50 to 100 million tons.
Okay.
And they had, in anticipation of that, they were building lots of new graphite plants. They were expanding lots of their existing graphite plants. Mm. So there seems to be some mismatch in terms of timing,
okay.
And the electrode capacities have probably come in a little earlier than the capacities on the electric arc furnace, because as I said, as we speak, they have increased from 50 to 100.
Yeah.
And in the next 2 years, their target is to go to 160.
Okay, all right.
So which is 3 times.
All right. So, Mr. Jhunjhunwala, sir, as you're telling us and you've told us in the past as well, non-UHP is something that's only 20% of your total mix. That's right, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, but, you know, we have a note coming in from Macquarie. They are saying that UHP prices are down by around 10 to around 13% for the next quarter. Have you seen any kind of tapering down in terms of pricing?
You see, there is a lag and there is a sympathy lag, which always happens in anything.
Right.
And as you rightly put it in the context that the entire metal space, including aluminium, copper, steel, things are slowing down and the world is slowing down. It's nothing specific to us.
Right.
So obviously, there is some sort of uncertainty about the future.
Give us a range, sir, in terms of price correction of UHP, because you're a specialist in UHP. There are few players in the world that make UHP. What is the correction? Some are saying 10%, some are saying 15%, some are saying 20%. If you could give us a broad range, then at least the street could work out with some numbers. As of now, you know, the numbers are all over the place.
See, unfortunately, we are talking at a particular time that we are absolutely not allowed to speak in terms of numbers. I mean, I have just received a notice from my own secretary that because of the buyback, which is in the process right now,
all right,
there is a window closing time. So it's a matter of another 2-3 weeks that we will be announcing.
Let's talk about the buyback then. Mr. Jhunjhunwala, let's talk about the buyback. The other fear is that the stock price is, what, 2,700, 2,800 rupees. You were announced a buyback at around 5,500 rupees. Two-part question here. Is the buyback on? Is the process on? Because you announced it in late November. After that, no communication whatsoever. So is it on? And second part, will you look to scale down this buyback price? Go ahead, Mr. Jhunjhunwala.
No, Nigel, it is not possible, because once you have announced the buyback, you cannot go back on that. So buyback is absolutely on. There is absolutely no change in terms of the size of the buyback. There's no change in terms of pricing of the buyback. Once you have announced, you just cannot take it back. And as you are saying that the street is wondering because there's no news, that's again not correct, because there are 85 to 90,000 shareholders, and each one of them has received a notice, and they are in the process of voting. If I remember the dates correctly, by the 29th of January, the e-voting is getting over, and by 31st January or first week of March, we will announce the results.
Okay.
And then it's a matter of 3 to 5 weeks' time, whatever time SEBI takes in terms of approving it.
Sure.
So if everything goes well by end of February, early March, the buyback would be over.
Okay.
Okay, so your buyback is on track. That's an important clarification coming in from the management there. But Mr. Jhunjhunwala, just coming back to the business, the other big issue I think seems to be this needle coke price, which is your key raw material. And the prices have risen because there's an alternate use which is coming in for needle coke prices, for needle coke itself. Just take us through where the situation stands currently for you all.
So this alternate use has no impact as far as the quality and the grade of needle coke which is used by the graphite industry.
Sure.
But you're right. In the last 18 months or so, on the back of a very strong demand for electrodes, there is a shortage even for that particular grade which doesn't go into the lithium-ion batteries. I guess your question was about needle coke supplies moving from graphite
supplies
to
and prices as well. What are the prices?
Yeah, how is it affecting your business directly? I mean, what is the kind of raw material pressure you're facing on account of this?
The needle coke prices are frozen on a half-yearly basis. So the prices, as we speak now, are frozen for the first half, January, June. And
at what price, sir?
The prices have gone up. Again, unfortunately, as I said, at this moment, I cannot give any specific numbers.
Okay.
But it will be a matter of another 2 weeks when we speak to the analysts and all.
All right, Mr. Jhunjhunwala, we're running short on time, but very quickly, what really Saat's sentiment was you put on a big capex plan that the street was having their doubts as well. That capex plan is on. You're going ahead with that 20,000 tons.
Yes,
that's on.
Absolutely,
okay, we'll put that aside.
I mean, it's a 3-year span. We are not talking about some hiccups happening for 3 months or 6 months in between. As we said, it will take 3 years to complete it.
Okay, all right. So we'll get that out of the way. The other rumor in the market is how much of your total produce is exported, sir?
About 2/3, 1/3.
2/3. Okay. The other, other rumor is that there could be an export duty that will come about on graphite electrodes. Your comment on that? If that comes about, will that really hit your exports?
See, I don't think it is going to come. Again, I mean, I'm nobody. I'm just an interested party.
But if it comes, then?
No, if it comes, of course. I mean, first of all, obviously, we would like to pass it on to the exporting customers. But if we cannot, I don't think so, because we have done whatever the Steel Ministry wanted us to do last year. In every budget, I mean, these kinds of speculations do happen. But I think we have taken care of all their concerns. And as far as I'm concerned, as far as what we understand from the market and from the Steel Ministry, it is not on the table.
Okay.
Mr. Jhunjhunwala, just leave us with a slightly longer-term view, because last year and a half, I mean, things were unusually tight, and when things are that tight, something gives way, and that is what has happened. So, you've been in the business for a long time. I mean, it's how are things likely to pan out the next couple of years? Because you're thinking long term. You've got capacity coming up in over the next 3 years, you said, right? So,
you see,
where are things likely to balance out, even out finally, over the longer term?
Okay, so you see, we came into this business in '76. And it's been about 42 years now. And we were the last new company to come into this business in the world. So I'm just giving you an idea about the complexity of the entry barriers on the technology front, and it has all to do with the technology barriers. So given that there is practically no chance of any newcomer coming in this industry anytime soon, it's all left to the existing 5 players in the world to increase capacities. To the best of my knowledge, I mean, except us who have already announced this expansion of 20,000 tons, nobody probably is even thinking in terms of expanding at this moment.
Okay.
So
So where exactly do your capacity utilization, where does it stand right now? If you could just leave us with that number, say compared to last quarter.
we are more or less in the mid-80s,
Okay.
which is where we have been in the last 3-4 quarters.
All right, Mr. Jhunjhunwala, we're going to leave it on that note. Thanks very much for joining in and speaking to us. So some clarifications coming in from the HEG management, especially on the buyback, which stands and is going as per process, but nonetheless can't really explain the kind of fall that we've seen on both these graphite as well as HEG stocks.